The email arrived at exactly 9:03 a.m. No subject line, just a calendar invite. Meeting with HR and management, 9:30 a.m., conference room C. 15 years. 15 years at Sterling Corp, pouring myself into every project, every late night, every impossible deadline. I'd built systems from the ground up that were still running, mentored dozens of junior staff, and fixed more of Daniel's messes than I could count. I'd missed birthdays, anniversaries, even sat fielding work calls outside my mother's funeral because a critical issue had arisen. And now, this sterile, vaguely ominous invitation. For a second, the familiar knot of dread tightened in my stomach. That reflex had been conditioned over years of corporate tightropes and sudden, stressful demands. But then something else settled over me. A profound, quiet calm. It wasn't resignation. It was preparedness. The past few months hadn't just been business as usual. I'd seen the writing on the wall, subtle but clear. Daniel, my boss, taking credit for my analysis on the crucial Phoenix project, while sidelining me from client presentations. Promoting Jason, his golf buddy with half the qualifications, to lead developer over Miguel, a brilliant engineer I'd personally trained for 2 years. Ignoring my data-driven warnings about outdated infrastructure that was a ticking time bomb. The air at Sterling had grown stagnant, thick with politics and a willful blindness to reality. My loyalty, once my currency, felt like a heavy, rusted anchor. As I walked the familiar path to conference room C, I noticed details I usually overlooked. The slightly worn carpet I'd argued needed replacing 5 years ago. The framed photo from the company picnic Layla hadn't attended because of a critical deployment. I passed the server room where I'd spent countless nights optimizing systems, humming a tune only I understood. Just outside conference room C, I paused, took a slow, deliberate breath, and stepped inside. Daniel was already there, seated at the head of the polished table, leaning back like he was presiding over a kingdom. His fingers were steepled, a gesture so cliché it was almost comical. To his right sat Sarah from HR, her face set in that carefully neutral, corporate sympathy mask. Daniel didn't bother with masks. His expression was detached, almost bored. "Layla," he began, his voice formal, rehearsed. "Please have a seat. Thank you for coming on such short notice." As if I had a choice. As you know, the company is undergoing a period of strategic realignment. Here it was. The corporate jargon buffet. I sat, my back straight, hands resting calmly in my lap. "And as part of this realignment, we've made the difficult decision to eliminate your position, effective immediately." My position. 15 years of expertise, dedication, and institutional knowledge, reduced to a position to be eliminated. A phantom limb. Sarah slid a manila folder across the table. "Inside, Layla, you'll find the details of your severance package. 2 weeks for every year of service, 60 days of benefits continuation, and access to outplacement services." She spoke smoothly, professionally, every word rehearsed. I looked down at the folder for a moment, then met Daniel's gaze. No begging, no tears, no anger. Just quiet understanding. "I understand," I said, my voice steady, perhaps a little softer than usual. "I appreciate the many years of opportunity here." That seemed to genuinely surprise Daniel. He blinked, his practiced composure faltering slightly. He probably expected tears or an argument. He didn't expect calm, dignified acceptance. "Right. Well." He cleared his throat, regaining some footing. "We'll need you to pack your personal effects by the end of the day. And please ensure your company laptop and badge are returned to HR before 5 p.m. I nodded, standing up. I didn't need to prolong this. "Of course. Thank you both for your time." I turned and walked out of the room, leaving them sitting there, likely wondering why I wasn't crumbling. What they didn't know, couldn't possibly suspect, was that 2 hours earlier, sitting at my desk while the office hummed around me, I had signed a contract. Not just any contract, but one for a head of strategic development position at Novatech, one of Sterling Corp's main competitors. The process hadn't started overnight. A few months back, a message had popped up on my LinkedIn from Mark, a recruiter known for working with forward-thinking tech firms. "Layla," it read, Your work on the scaling infrastructure for Sterling Corp's platform, particularly the ingenuity in the database architecture for the Phoenix project, has a strong reputation in the industry. Would you be open to a confidential conversation about opportunities that better leverage your unique expertise? My first instinct had been loyalty. 15 years is a long time, but the anchor was rusting. Daniel had just blocked my proposal for a critical infrastructure upgrade, deeming it too expensive and unnecessary, only to greenlight Jason's pet project, which I knew was technically flawed. He'd publicly downplayed my team's achievements, and privately, my warnings about the system's vulnerabilities were met with dismissive waves of his hand. I was invisible while he basked in a light I'd created. That was the final straw. Loyalty, I realized, was a two-way street, and Sterling Corp had put up a permanent roadblock. So I replied to Mark. We had a discreet coffee, then a series of calls. Meeting Owen Caldwell, Novatech's CEO, was a revelation. He listened. He understood the technical complexities I described. He saw the strategic value in my experience. He didn't just want a position filled. He wanted my vision, my leadership, my ability to build robust systems and high-performing teams. The negotiation wasn't just about salary. I pushed for significant equity, control over my budget, and the autonomy to build a team from the ground up. People I trusted, people whose talent I knew firsthand, people I knew Sterling was failing to recognize. I wouldn't settle for another situation where my work was exploited and my team undervalued. Owen agreed to my terms. He believed in the return on investment my expertise and team would bring. Signing that contract had felt surreal. A blend of exhilaration and a strange sadness for the chapter closing, but mostly power. The power of knowing I was walking into a better future, not being pushed into an uncertain one. The notification from HR was just the corporate world catching up to a decision I had already strategically made for myself. Back at my desk, the office still hummed. People typed, talked, laughed, oblivious. It was just another Thursday. But for me, the axis had shifted. Jordan, the sharp junior analyst I'd mentored, stopped by. He looked genuinely concerned. Layla? Is everything okay? We saw the meeting invite. I gave him a warm, sincere smile. Actually, Jordan, everything is going to be just fine. Better than fine, even. There's a new adventure starting, and it's going to involve some really good people. I winked, a hint of mystery in my tone. He looked puzzled but nodded, seeming slightly reassured. Packing took less time than I expected. The small box felt inadequate for 15 years, but I realized how little of it I actually wanted to keep. The corporate awards felt hollow. The framed photos of past office parties brought a pang of sadness for the camaraderie that had been overshadowed by toxicity. I kept a few photos of my old team, a silly desk toy that made me smile, and my favorite ergonomic pen. Everything else could stay. At 4:58 p.m., I walked to the HR desk. A young intern I didn't recognize was sitting there. Hi, I said, placing the laptop and badge on the counter. Here are these. She looked up, startled. Oh, are you leaving? Apparently, I replied with a small smile. Have a good evening. Walking out of the Sterling Corp building and into the late afternoon sun felt like shedding a heavy coat. The air was crisp, clean. I didn't look back. In my hand, I still held the HR folder with my severance details. Tomorrow, my nameplate at Novatech would be installed. Layla Hayes, Head of Strategic Development. And Monday? Monday would be the real beginning. Monday arrived, crisp and bright, a perfect autumn morning. I stood in the sleek, modern lobby of Novatech's downtown headquarters, adjusting the collar of my blazer. No badge yet, but a profound sense of anticipation and freedom. This wasn't just a new job, it was a new world. As the elevator doors opened on the executive floor, a receptionist greeted me with a genuine smile. Ms. Hayes? Welcome. Mr. Caldwell is expecting you. Owen Caldwell. We'd spoken several times over the past months, and each conversation had reinforced my belief that this was the right move. He was known for being brilliant and demanding, but also fiercely loyal to his people. I was escorted to my office. It was a corner office with large windows offering a stunning view of the city's skyline. The desk was clear, a state-of-the-art monitor waiting, and on the wall, a simple, elegant plaque. Layla Hayes, Head of Strategic Development. Just my name. No fine print, no shared glory. It felt real. Owen stood as I entered his office, extending his hand. Layla, it's truly a pleasure to finally have you here. Welcome aboard. Thank you, Owen, I said, shaking his hand. Thank you for this opportunity, and especially for believing in my vision. He smiled. Your work speaks for itself. We've seen the numbers. Sterling Corp's client retention figures on the systems you built were remarkable. We've been trying to achieve that level of stability for years. He spent the next hour walking me through the office, introducing me to key department heads. I met Mason, a veteran engineering lead. He was polite, professional, but his handshake was firm and his eyes held a hint of cautious assessment. I knew I'd have to earn his respect, which was a challenge I welcomed. Then, Owen led me to a conference room where a group of executives waited. I was immediately given a seat at the main table. No hesitation. The meeting was focused, strategic, and refreshingly free of corporate posturing. We discussed Novateka's upcoming initiatives, and then Owen turned to me. Layla, he said, addressing the room. As you know, Layla is joining us as head of strategic development, a crucial role for our growth. Her immediate priority is to build out her team. We've cleared the budget and resources for you to bring in the best talent, Layla. People you trust. People who share your commitment to excellence and innovation. That was the moment. The explicit, public confirmation that I wasn't just filling a slot, I was building something new. 15 years of building, mentoring, and seeing that talent overlooked or exploited. Now, I had the chance to do it right. Thank you, Owen, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding with a mix of excitement and resolve. I already have a few names in mind. That evening, back in my quiet apartment that felt strangely empty after years of centering my life around Sterling Corp, I opened my personal laptop. I carefully crafted 6 emails. One each to Olivia, Christopher, Samantha, Jordan, Miguel, and one other key person, Michael, a data visualization expert whose talent was being wasted. The subject line for each was the same: a new chapter, let's talk. The messages were personal, referencing their specific skills and contributions that had been ignored at Sterling. I didn't badmouth my former employer. I simply offered a vision of a different kind of workplace, a place where their talent would be recognized, their ideas heard, and their work directly contributed to building something impactful. Responses started trickling in within minutes. Olivia's was immediate. Call me ASAP. Christopher replied, intrigued. When are you free? By midnight, all 6 had responded with enthusiastic yes or eager questions about when we could connect. The sense of hope and shared purpose was palpable, even through email. Over the next couple of days, I spoke to each of them individually. They shared their own stories of the growing dysfunction at Sterling Corp, the panic after my departure, the confusion about Layla-built systems nobody understood, Daniel promoting Jason to a senior tech oversight role he was clearly unqualified for, the increasing demands with shrinking resources. Hearing their accounts reinforced my decision and fueled my determination to build a haven for genuine talent at Novatech. Layla, Olivia said over a video call, her usual cheerful demeanor strained. It's a mess here. Daniel's calling emergency meetings every morning, asking why people are updating their LinkedIn. Sarah from HR pulled me aside, subtly asking if you or I had been soliciting people. Just tell her you're exploring opportunities, Olivia, I advised, keeping my tone neutral. You don't owe them an explanation for wanting something better. Miguel, the brilliant developer, sounded exhausted. They asked me to explain the entire architecture of the core database system in 30 minutes yesterday. The one you designed. I've only been here 8 months. Jason just stood there nodding like he understood, but you could see his eyes glazing over. These stories, while frustrating, were music to my ears. Sterling Corp was facing the consequences of undervaluing its people. Meanwhile, at Novatech, I was busy. Working with David, a sharp and efficient lawyer from our legal department, and Emily from HR, a contrast to Sarah's corporate veneer. Emily was genuinely helpful. I finalized the offer packages. Competitive salaries, significant equity options, flexible working arrangements, and crucially, clear ownership of their work. Their names would be on the projects they built. By Tuesday of my second week, the fallout at Sterling was undeniable. My LinkedIn feed showed a cascade of updates: open to work, new role pending, seeking opportunities. Messages flooded my inbox from industry contacts. Heard things are interesting over at Sterling. One read, "Clients are starting to ask questions," wrote another. On Wednesday, Owen stopped by my office. "Just got a call," he said, a slight smile playing on his lips. Ethel Solutions. They're evaluating their current partnerships. My ears perked up. Ethel Solutions was a massive logistics conglomerate, one of Sterling's most valuable and longest-standing clients. Mr. Robert, their CFO, was known for being incredibly sharp and demanding excellence. They specifically asked, Owen continued, the smile widening, if Layla Hayes would be leading their account if they were to transition their business. A wave of satisfaction washed over me. My relationship with clients at Sterling wasn't just transactional. It was built on trust, reliability, and a deep understanding of their needs, something Daniel had never fully appreciated. That evening, my phone buzzed with an incoming text message. Unknown number. I opened it. "Hey Layla, heard you landed somewhere. Congrats. Can we talk?" Daniel. I stared at the screen. No apology for the firing. No acknowledgement of the 15 years, or the way he'd treated me or my team. Just a casual, entitled reach out now that the power dynamic had flipped. I didn't reply. Instead, I poured a glass of wine and opened the group chat I'd created for my soon-to-be Novatech team. We shared jokes, old office anecdotes that were funny now rather than frustrating, and strategized about our first project at Novatech. Then Olivia typed, "Layla, you have no idea what this means to us. After feeling so invisible for so long, you saw us. You believed in us before we fully believed in ourselves. I'm all in. 100%. Miguel added, "Yeah, Layla. It's like breathing fresh air just talking about working with you again." My chest tightened, not with pain, but with a profound sense of rightness. This wasn't revenge. It was rebuilding. It was giving talent the platform it deserved. Daniel might have fired me, but he had inadvertently set in motion the rescue of his best people. By the end of my first week at Novatech, the atmosphere at Sterling Corp was reportedly shifting dramatically. The initial panic had subsided, replaced by a tense, unnatural silence, the kind that falls over a workplace when people are afraid to even whisper. Jordan messaged me on Monday morning of week 3. They pulled everyone into a reassurance meeting today. Daniel tried to sound confident, talking about synergy and lean operations, but everyone could see he was sweating. Someone asked about the departures, and he just completely dodged it. Said it was voluntary attrition as part of the realignment. Voluntary attrition. He was still trying to spin it. It was pathetic, but also showed how much trouble they were in. My absence wasn't just a gap. It was a structural failure in their talent base and institutional knowledge. By Tuesday, I had more concrete evidence of their struggle. Victoria, the former manager who had left Sterling years ago because she saw the toxic trajectory, reached out. She still had contacts there. Layla, her email read, "Heard from a friend in sales. 2 major clients are reevaluating contracts. Not Ethel Solutions yet, but significant ones. They reached out asking if you were available for consulting, or if you were involved anywhere they could follow." My friend says Daniel is scrambling, trying to personally manage client relationships he hasn't touched in years. I didn't chase these clients. I didn't have to. My work at Sterling wasn't just technical. It was relational. I built trust, delivered results under pressure, and consistently translated complex technical solutions into client value. It turned out people remembered that. And people talked. At Novatech, my team was coming together beautifully. Olivia was officially on board and starting onboarding. Christopher and Samantha had signed their offers. Miguel and Jordan were finalizing details. It felt like assembling a puzzle where every piece fit perfectly, not just in skill, but in shared values. Every new hire was a confirmation that we were building something solid, something better. Late that afternoon, while reviewing the architecture for our first major product initiative with Mason, who was slowly warming up, impressed by the structure and logic I brought, my phone buzzed. Another LinkedIn notification. Daniel had updated his profile. His new title, Chief Strategy Officer. I laughed out loud. There was no company-wide announcement, no press release. Just a quiet little edit on his personal profile. Clearly, a desperate attempt to legitimize his position and project competence after the exodus. He was trying to occupy the vacuum I'd left, but he didn't understand the substance behind the title. It reeked of panic. That same night, Claire, my friend in the legal department at Sterling, called. Her voice was hushed, hesitant. Layla? Oh God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they were going to do that to you. Claire, I said gently, surprised by her call. You don't owe me an apology. You didn't make the decision. I know, but I still feel responsible, she sighed. They had meetings about this weeks before. I wasn't looped in until the final HR review. But Layla, seeing the fallout, they're spiraling. Because you left. Because they didn't see it coming. You were the constant, the person holding so much together behind the scenes. Now Daniel's in meetings every morning, pushing everyone, trying to prove he's in control. It's chaos. I listened, letting her vent. She wasn't asking for anything, just needed to share. I just wanted you to know, she finished, her voice quiet, what you built there, it mattered. More than they ever knew. Her words stayed with me. It wasn't about my ego. It was about the tangible value of my work and my leadership finally being acknowledged, even by someone still trapped inside Sterling's walls. By Thursday morning, I was sitting in Owen's office, reviewing the early prototypes for our first major product launch. The energy was electric. Metrics are looking incredible, Layla, he said, tapping the report. These early prototypes are outperforming our most optimistic projections. We haven't even announced anything publicly, and we're already getting inbound interest from 2 major firms who got wind of what we're building. That's because our message is clear, Owen, I replied. Efficiency, transparency, and credibility. It's what clients want. It's what they remember. He looked at me thoughtfully. You know, Layla, you've accomplished more in 2 weeks with a brand new team than some executives manage in a year. I smiled, but the compliment brought a deeper realization. I hadn't suddenly become more capable. I was just finally in an environment where my capabilities were empowered, not suppressed. That afternoon, Olivia came by my office with a coffee just the way I liked it, black with a dash of cinnamon. Still feels unreal, she said, looking around the spacious office. You're really the boss now. I laughed. Well, technically Owen is the boss. I just sit in the corner. No, she said softly, her expression serious. You're the one we follow. You always were. Her words struck me. I thought back to the nights I stayed late fixing reports Daniel mangled, the weekends I coached junior analysts for presentations he'd take credit for. I'd wondered back then if it was all for nothing. But it wasn't. It built the foundation of trust and loyalty that was now flowering here at Novatech. That evening, as I was shutting down my computer, another message from Claire came through. Urgent board session requested by Daniel. Rumor is he's blaming structural performance issues and pushing for a leadership audit he thinks will frame him as the solution. Also, they've reached out to headhunters. He's definitely worried. I stared at the screen. He was trying to scapegoat his own failures and find a replacement for me before the board realized the truth. I typed back a short reply. He should be. Because the dominoes had only just begun to fall. By the following Monday, the news was official, if not public knowledge outside the industry. Sterling Corp was in serious trouble. It wasn't headline news, but the kind of internal rot that spreads from the top down. Missed deadlines, escalated client complaints, a deafening silence from leadership where there should have been communication. That morning, I was in a strategy meeting at Novatech, laying out the integration plan for our first major client win, not Ethel Solutions yet, but a significant one we landed thanks to the team's rapid progress, when Jordan slid a note across the table. Sterling just pulled out of the Global Tech Forward conference. No announcement. Just gone. I blinked. Daniel had been scheduled as a keynote speaker at that very conference, a fact he'd bragged about endlessly. Now silence. After the meeting, I stepped into the hallway to call Owen. Before I could speak, he jumped in, a mix of amusement and awe in his voice. Layla, you are stirring up more movement in the market than I anticipated. 3 more mid-tier clients from Sterling reached out this morning. They want demos. They want you. Let's not rush, I said, carefully choosing my words. We'll prioritize the ones who are a good strategic fit for us. The rest can wait. He paused, reading between the lines. You're not doing this to beat Sterling, are you? I smiled faintly. Remember, Owen? I'm doing this to build something better. If their house of cards collapses along the way because it can't stand on its own, so be it. That afternoon, I got another message. This time from Miguel, the developer who had been on the fence about leaving Sterling. Layla, I think I'm ready. Things are a complete mess here. They split your old role between Jason and some consultant nobody trusts. Neither of them understands the systems you designed. Yesterday, Jason asked me how to find the main server room key for a system access issue. He punctuated it with a string of exasperated emojis. Are you still building your team? I texted back instantly, yes. Let's meet tomorrow. By Tuesday, Miguel was sitting in my office at Novatech, looking years older than when I'd last seen him. I don't know how I lasted this long, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. It's like there's no leadership, no clear direction. Everything feels reactionary, defensive. The client calls about the system failures. They're brutal. I nodded slowly. That's what happens when leadership is built on control and ego, not competence and trust. When the person who actually built the engine leaves and nobody else knows how it works, the whole thing eventually breaks down. I don't want to just survive that kind of environment, Miguel said quietly. I want to thrive. Build something real. You will, I said, sliding an offer letter across my desk. You're not just getting a job here, Miguel. You're getting a voice. Ownership of your work. The chance to build something solid. His signature hit the paper with a sense of finality, like a thread snapping cleanly, untangling him from the Sterling mess. By midweek, the cracks at Sterling widened into chasms. A well-placed source forwarded me a company-wide email sent by Daniel, still acting as Chief Strategy Officer. We are undergoing a necessary operational streamlining, it read, full of corporate buzzwords about efficiency and leveraging synergies. It was pure theater, a desperate attempt to project stability. But the underlying meaning was clear. They were losing control and fast. That night, over drinks with Owen and our CFO, we reviewed early projections for our next quarter. If even half the serious leads we generated converted, Novatech was looking at its strongest growth quarter in 5 years. Layla, the CFO said, lifting his glass. I think we finally found the missing link. It wasn't missing, I replied, raising my own glass in return. It was just buried. The next morning, I woke to a voicemail from Claire. Her voice was tight with urgency. Layla, it's happening. Call me. I called back immediately. She picked up on the first ring, her voice trembling slightly. They did it. The board held an emergency vote. They're removing Daniel. I stood frozen. Not because I didn't see it coming, but because of the speed. It had happened faster than I anticipated. They're naming an interim CEO, Claire continued quickly. An external candidate. Full audit of leadership, strategy, finances. They're trying to salvage the ship before more talent walks, before the market realizes how bad it is. I didn't speak for a moment, just closed my eyes and breathed. They never expected this to turn into a movement, I said finally. No, Claire agreed. But you turned your exit into a blueprint. And now people are following it. That afternoon, Owen came into my office, a gleam in his eye. You have a lunch meeting tomorrow with Mr. Robert from Ethel Solutions, he announced. Big one. He said he's not interested in rehashing the past. Just interested in what you're building next. Good, I said, feeling a surge of energy. Because the past doesn't deserve our time. As he left, I looked at the project roadmap pinned to my wall. Clean lines, clear phases, a vision I had once tried to bring to Sterling, only to be told it was too ambitious, too complex, too much. Not anymore. Now, it was reality. And Daniel? He was learning the hard way that people are not replaceable cogs. Influence isn't granted by title. It's earned through competence, through trust, through showing up and delivering. He'd taken my seat at the table for years. Now, I was building the whole damn table. By Friday morning, the calls had stopped being subtle whispers. Layla Hayes was no longer just a name. She was a movement in the industry. Every day brought new messages. Former clients, recruiters, industry peers, even strangers who'd watched from afar. Some wanted jobs. Others just wanted to say thank you for proving that talent and integrity could win. But the most surprising call came at 10:47 a.m. from a name I hadn't heard in years, Victoria Carr. Victoria had been one of Sterling Corp's top-tier client contacts, the CFO of a massive logistics conglomerate, Ethel Solutions. She had hinted more than once that my team and I were the primary reason she stayed loyal to Sterling. Our last substantial conversation years ago had ended with a quiet warning. "Layla, if they ever let you go, I won't be far behind." Her voice now was cool, measured, but with an underlying intensity. "Layla," she said, "I've been watching. The shifts at Sterling, your team at Novatech, the new platform you're building. It's impressive." "Thank you, Victoria," I said, cautiously optimistic. "I didn't expect to hear from you." She hesitated. "You know me. I don't make moves without a reason. Here's mine: we're terminating our contract with Sterling." I blinked. "Seriously?" "Absolutely," she confirmed. "They've lost direction. No leadership, no stability. The interim CEO is clearly a figurehead, and the board is in chaos. They even asked us to delay our quarterly review because they couldn't get their reporting tools to function properly. I could guess why. The systems I built had been held together by my specific, undocumented knowledge. Once I was gone, and my key team members followed, nobody could fix them when they broke. We're vetting new partners," Victoria continued. "But between us, Layla, I want to work with you." I leaned back in my chair at Novatech, phone against my ear, looking out at the city skyline from my corner office. "I appreciate that, Victoria. But I don't just take clients anymore. I choose partners. People who respect the value of long-term vision and genuine expertise." "I'm not asking for a vendor relationship, Layla," she said, her voice firm. "I'm offering something much bigger. Come in-house. Let our entire technology and transformation team. Executive level. Autonomy. Equity stake." I froze. This wasn't just a consulting gig or leading a division within a tech company. This was leading strategic change on a massive scale within a major corporation that powered global logistics. This was an empire. After the call, I sat in silence for a long moment, weighing the offer. Novatech had given me a platform, freedom, respect, and the space to rebuild with my team. It felt like home, a place of integrity. But this was a different level of impact. A chance to lead innovation and affect culture on a massive scale, beyond just the tech sector. Still, walking away from Novatech so soon felt premature. My team, Olivia, Miguel, Christopher, Samantha, Jordan, Michael, they were just finding their footing, finally getting the recognition they deserved. They weren't just employees. They were people I'd helped uplift, people who had trusted me completely. I wasn't ready to walk away from them. But I wasn't ready to dismiss Victoria's offer either. That night, I met Owen for drinks at a quiet rooftop bar. He greeted me with a smirk that told me he already knew something significant was up. "So," he said, swirling his drink, "Victoria Carr." I narrowed my eyes slightly. "How did you know?" "She called me," he said smoothly. "Told me she made you an offer. And I told her she was incredibly lucky you even picked up the phone." He paused, his expression shifting from amused to serious. "But I also told her something else. I told her that if you ever wanted to lead a division that bridged technology with something as massive as finance, logistics, or infrastructure, that I would back you. With every dollar I've got in Novatech, or personally if needed. I know talent like yours doesn't sit still for long, Layla. So if this is your next mountain, I won't stop you. But I love to find a way for Novatech to be part of the climb." My stomach flipped. His trust, his foresight, his willingness to support my growth even if it meant my role changed. It was staggering. "Oh," and I breathed. "No, listen," he said, leaning forward slightly. "You rebuilt your life in weeks. You built ours with it. You brought incredible talent here. You've made us stronger, faster, more credible. So whatever you decide, know that you have my full support. Whether that's leading a massive transformation at Ethel Solutions or building an even bigger, more autonomous division here at Novatech focused on enterprise partnerships, I'm with you." I exhaled slowly, the internal conflict easing. It wasn't about leaving. It was about where I could have the greatest impact, where I was needed most. And Owen saw that. And that's what makes you different, I said quietly, from the Daniels of the world. The next morning, walking into the Novatech office, something struck me. There was a weight to every step now, but it wasn't pressure. It was presence. People stood when I entered the room. They asked for my input. They listened. Not because I demanded it, but because I had earned it. Halfway through my day, Olivia pulled me into a side conference room, a wide grin on her face. "Just so you know," she whispered conspiratorially, Sterling sent another recruiter after Miguel." Miguel chuckled from the doorway, where he'd been reviewing code on his laptop. "Same guy who ghosted me 3 years ago when I applied for an internal transfer that Daniel blocked." I told him I was flattered, then forwarded the email to our team chat. "Nice touch, Miguel," I said, grinning. "You should have seen Jason's face yesterday, by the way," Miguel added. "He's still lurking around, not chief strategy officer anymore. They gave that interim role to someone else, but he's got some made-up title now. He asked me how to run the client report wizard on the old system, the one that hasn't worked right since Layla left." That made me pause. Daniel. He was still there, trying to cling on. Just then, Claire's name popped up on my phone with a message. "Internal rumor. Daniel's now trying to position himself as head of innovation and legacy systems management to justify staying on. Nobody's buying it, but watch your back. He's not done trying to salvage his reputation." I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "He can try. I've got something he'll never understand. A team that follows me willingly, an industry that values expertise, and a future that doesn't need fixing." Because in a few days, Sterling would discover something they weren't prepared for. Their competitor wasn't just hiring away their talent. We were expanding. 3 months after I walked out of Sterling Corp with a small cardboard box and a polite smile, I walked into Novatech's executive summit to the sound of a standing ovation. Not for a speech or a press release, but because the new product we launched, built by my team, based on Layla Sterling systems but vastly improved and stabilized, had just landed Novatech a multi-million-dollar deal. One Sterling Corp had been chasing unsuccessfully for years. We didn't win it with corporate spin. We won it with functionality, with real solutions, delivered by a team that had been discarded, underestimated, and ignored. The same team now leading one of the fastest-growing, most respected development divisions in the industry. I didn't need the applause. I needed impact. And we were just getting started. Earlier that week, the final domino had fallen. Victoria Carr called again. Not with another job offer this time, but to confirm. "We've moved all our systems over to your team, Layla," she said. The transition was seamless. Honestly, I wish we'd done it sooner. The difference in reliability and support is night and day. My decision to accept her offer and lead the transformation within Ethel Solutions, while maintaining a strategic partnership with Novatech and bringing key team members like Olivia and Miguel with me, was already proving its value. "Thank you, Victoria," I said. She paused before continuing. "There's something else," she said carefully. "Brian reached out to us personally." My breath hitched slightly. "Daniel." "He offered to consult." Victoria's voice dripped with polite disdain. "Said he could bring unique insights into your process, since he worked closely with you for so many years." I didn't speak, just listened. "I told him," Victoria finished, her voice cold and final, "that his insights were precisely the reason we left Sterling in the first place." A quiet, deep satisfaction settled over me. It wasn't the thrill of revenge. It was the peace of knowing that talent, integrity, and treating people right ultimately built something far stronger, far more resilient, than ego and control ever could. My former life was collapsing under the weight of its own dysfunction. My new life, and the lives of the talented people who followed me, were just beginning to soar.